green dry erase marker when no one was looking and
huffed
proceeded to
it?
decorate my face. Hey,
At least
listen,
you didn't
I
huff
break
it.
the rules.
Yo, what's up guys? We're gonna be checking out Let Me Explain Daycare Stories. You see, I never got to go to daycare. That was a little too rich for my blood. We just had our siblings watch us. Yeah, so let's find out what happens in daycare. It's not like I would know. Let's get it, let's get it. Such a soothing
hello,
song.
my geeks and peeps, my explainers and entertainers, my little oodle-lollies.
What's
Rebecca
up?
Parham here. So, did you know I was a daycare kid? Probably not, because I've never mentioned it before. Makes sense, given that mom and dad were both working parents, and leaving one's infant at home alone is generally considered
dual income
problematic.
household.
Now, I know it might be hard to
Damn,
believe, but I haven't
that
always
looks
been the
hairy.
pinnacle of refinement and maturity that you see before you today. No. As a kid, I was a bit of a rascal. For example, the box story. Now at this daycare, we had a big playroom, and in this
This have something to do with
there was
Roddy
a dark
Ricch?
little alcove where custodial stuff and equipment was kept all the time. And one morning during playtime, I noticed someone had left a large box there. Big enough for a child to hide behind. Now there's a concept that I call kid logic, and it's basically just a name for that randomness that kids possess, or the absurdity that is their reasoning sometimes. For example, when I saw that box, that's when my kid logic kicked in, and I said, I'm gonna hide behind that box for as long as possible and see what happens.
That seems like a great idea.
So when the
It
adults
is.
weren't looking, I slunk behind the box and crouched down, hiding
Did you get
myself
locked
entirely.
in? Oh
I must have
no.
stayed there for half an hour before playtime ended, and they ushered all the kids away to a different room for
Oh
a new
no.
activity. And funny enough, the adults were none the wiser I was gone.
They didn't do a head count?
System. Now this is what gets me. It took an hour of me
Yeah.
hiding before an adult came back to the
That's
room
ridiculous.
and visibly began looking around for something. Couldn't imagine what it might be. Now where did I leave that small child? Must be around here someplace.
Terrible
Peeked
daycare.
my head up over the edge of the box to watch, but that proved to be my undoing. I was spotted. I've been compromised. I got in big trouble for that, of course. I was
Why?
clearly not
You're
good
a
at getting
kid.
away with things when I was a kid, as you'll see in the next story. Now, one time at this daycare, they brought in a whiteboard, and you were only allowed to draw on it with adult supervision. Okay, I won't draw on the board.
Man, screw
Instead,
supervision.
I stole a green dry erase marker when no one was looking and
huffed
proceeded to
it?
decorate my face. Hey,
least
listen,
you didn't
I
huff
break
it.
the rules. They specifically said don't draw on the board. They said nothing about my face.
I don't know about y'all, but if I took my child to a daycare and they lost said kid for over an hour, like I know she wasn't lost, but they definitely moved on without her. Like that's ridiculous, right? I'm paying all this money and you lost my kid for an hour. Like you're supposed to do a head count. You're supposed to constantly know where every single kid is. Like you don't have to know their exact position, but if you were to leave, you need to make sure you have all the kids with you. So I would have low key, been on their head. I don't know about suing, but I would have talked about getting a little discount for next month.
I put the marker back and walked away, but was promptly spotted by an adult.
Busted.
Becca, did you do this to yourself?
Don't lie.
No.
You lied.
Did somebody do this to you?
Don't bring someone else in it.
Yes.
You brought someone else in
Who
it.
did it? Well, sheesh, I hadn't thought
It was
I had
Tupac.
that far. And I honestly didn't even think to blame another kid. Instead, that good old kid logic kicked in, and I came up with the most foolproof story that was sure to get my hide out
It
of
can't be
trouble.
that foolproof.
I was minding my own business looking for something to play with, and then the markers came over
Oh,
and
God.
marked on my face.
Oh my gosh. Terrible. Terrible lie.
I will never understand how that daycare worker kept a straight face.
Mm.
But off to timeout I went.
So, what are you in for? Disrupting the status quo? Whoa. I
Oh
stuck
no,
gum up
no,
my nose.
no.
Something I haven't mentioned yet is that my sister Rachel also
Stick
went
to
to
the
this
stuff
daycare.
you
And because she's 2
know.
years older than me, she got to be in the big kids program called the Superstars. And I was so
Ooh.
jealous that I took to calling them the Stupid Stars. Extra crispy on that burn there, little Becca. But one thing that will always be a significant memory to me is the day I discovered that the Superstars had a Nintendo.
Oh.
Yet, they had Super Mario Bros.
Oh.
And that, my little oodle-ollies, was the first time I ever saw a console video game.
Man, that was a
Thought I was
classic.
looking at magic. And that became the only thing I ever wanted to do at playtime was go over to the big kid area
play
and
Super
watch
Mario
them
Bros.
play Super Mario Brothers.
Just watching is
Don't
fun.
you dare tell me that gamers aren't real entertainers. I was watching people play video games long before the
Dead
Implies,
ass!
Decepticons, and D-Pies of the world made it a thing. But when playtime was over, the daycare staff had to pry me away, kicking and screaming from that TV set.
Because it was a good
One
time,
day,
you know?
however, I came up with a brilliant idea. When they pulled me away from the big kids' corner and sat me down with the other little kids, I proceeded to scream and cry that I miss my big sister. And
Aw.
nothing was gonna console me except being allowed
Okay.
to be with her in the
This
big kid
this may
area.
work.
I guess the adults didn't know what else to do, so they actually let me go back home.
Hey!
Holy Crayola, that actually worked.
Yo, she has like a great point with the whole watching people play games was entertaining. And this was before YouTube, you know, gaming was a thing. I used to watch my older siblings just play like Zelda and Mario and other games on the Nintendo 64. It was lit. Obviously, I didn't play myself because I was a kid. I was dumb and I would have sucked. But just watching them play it and, you know, just being in the moment, it was a good time. So I fully understand why YouTube gaming and people watching other people play games is a thing, because it truly is entertaining, man. Like, it's fun.
Sure enough, I made a beeline for the Nintendo. Screw you, sis, I got video games to observe. It didn't take long for an adult to catch on, and I was eventually pulled away again. When I tried the same shtick, they gently said, "Becca, you say you miss your sister, but every time you go over there, you just watch them play video games." Okay, maybe they had me there.
Ah, they got
Not gonna
you.
lie, that's a pretty solid accusation.
All right, grown up, I'll concede to you this time. But one day I'll be grown up, and I'll watch all the video games I want.
Don't you mean play them?
No.
I've saved the best story for last. Even when I started kindergarten, there was no escaping this daycare, because one of the services they provided was picking up children from my elementary school and taking them back to the daycare where the parents could pick them up later.
Okay, we had that
Every
too.
day, I didn't get picked up by a parent or get
It's
on a
called
normal
Children's
yellow school bus.
Courtyard.
I waited for a big white van.
Yup,
That sounds rather nefarious now that I say it out loud.
a big white
But yeah,
van.
Rachel and I would wait for the van, pile in with the other kids, and go wait to get picked up at the daycare. And this was a routine my kindergarten teacher knew. She was a very good teacher and kept track of the way each of her students were supposed to go home.
That is a good teacher.
So she would make sure
Give
I
her a
got in
raise.
that van. Well, I was getting a little bored of the routine. And here's good old kid logic again, because many of my classmates would get to walk home. And for some reason, I decided that was the cool thing to do.
Oh
I
no.
aspired to walk home.
Do you even know how to
That
walk?
wasn't gonna happen with Miss
to
Responsibility
your house?
Pants botching my whole operation.
Like, get
so
there?
like the little devil I was, I waited until we had a substitute teacher. All right, here's your evil genius learner's permit, kiddo.
Hope you didn't get
School
lost.
ended that day. Instead of getting into the daycare van, I hid behind a brick pillar and waited for the van to leave without me. Funny how my sister never said anything. She must have been like, all right, I guess she died. As soon as the van left, I headed off on foot. My house was within walking distance,
Okay.
about a mile away.
Okay, not
But I
bad.
began to think as I walked that no one was actually going to be at the house, and I had no way of getting inside. Probably should have thought of that before. So instead of walking home, I made the executive decision to walk to the daycare instead. Now, I knew what I was doing was against the rules, because every single time I saw a white vehicle of any sort coming in the
hid.
distance, I
You
would
hauled
duck
ass.
behind a tree or bush as
Uh-huh.
fast as I could. When I was so close that I could see the daycare up ahead, I noticed what was most definitely a white van
Oh,
approaching.
you better
The only tree
hide.
immediately available was thinner than me. So not only was this tree already insufficient at hiding me, but when I jumped behind it, I didn't think to put the tree between me and the line of sight of the van. So when the daycare staff approached, this is what they saw.
Mighty suspicious. Did they
I'm
stop?
revoking that evil genius learner's permit. They stopped the van,
Oh,
made
okay.
me get inside, and guess who I found in the back?
Your
The
sister.
snitch that ratted me out. My own sister.
She was just looking out for you,
How
you know?
could you?
Just-
We were brothers, you and I.
Just older
Hey.
sibling tings.
And that is just a handful of examples of what a little monster I was.
Another amazing video, daycare stories. Like I said, I was never in daycare, so I couldn't really like relate too much to this. But I do know what the daycare was. We had one at my school that would take you from the school to the daycare. I was always jealous of those kids. They seemed like they had money. I also remember a time when I too wanted to walk home. Well, I didn't even want to walk home. I fell asleep on the bus to take me home. And then I woke up and it missed my stop and I got off and I started crying, and then some like random guy came out of his house and let me in and let me use his phone. Thank God he wasn't a creep or something, because oh man. But don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of those great things, because that was it. My name is Prince of Hawkham. Stay charming, my friends.